Hi everyone, in this video we're going to cover how to set up your environment and the tools that you need to install to be able to solve the hands-on labs that we'll be covering in the upcoming videos. But before we do that, I want to bring your attention to the document that is attached in the description of the video. It contains all the links and instructions that you need to set up your environment. Of course, you're free to use whatever you want. This is just a sample setup that models what I personally use in my videos. So if you look over here, I'm using VMware Fusion because I am on a Mac and I have Kali Linux installed on it. And on Kali, I have 4 tools. So the first one is Burp Suite Community Edition, which comes pre-installed in Kali. The second one is Burp Suite Professional Edition, which does not come pre-installed and does require a purchase. So the professional version of Burp Suite does cost about $500, and it's absolutely not required to purchase it for this course. A very small portion of the videos requires the use of the professional version, usually only when you're using the collaborator functionality or the intruder functionality. And so what my students usually do is just watch the video to understand how to use the professional version, and then they don't apply it in practice because they don't have the professional version. But this way, when you are in a real world environment and you do have a real engagement, what happens is that your employer will give you the professional version and you already know how to use it from the videos. So I recommend just watching the videos if you do not have the funds to buy the Burp Suite Professional Edition. The third tool is Visual Studio. So we use that when it comes to our Python scripts, and it does not come pre-installed in Kali. So it does require installation, however, it's completely free for personal use. The fourth tool, which is not required, is the Foxy Proxy Firefox extension. So you do have to install it in Firefox. However, this is only required if you're using previous versions of Burp Suite. So Burp Suite used to not have a built-in browser, and so when I recorded the videos, I had to configure my own browser in Kali to send my request to Burp. However, right now, the new versions of Burp Suite contain a built-in browser, and so you no longer have to set up this extension. However, if you are using a previous version, which I strongly recommend that you don't, but if you are, there are instructions in this document that explain how to use the Foxy Proxy extension to have your browser send requests to Burp Suite. All right, so if you go down right over here, the installation instructions and links for each component is listed in the document. So whether you're installing VMware or VirtualBox, there are links to both, and then the Kali Linux installation, and then the Kali Linux setup. So how to access or install each individual tool. So we'll see that in a bit, but the idea over here is again, Burp Suite Community Edition comes pre-installed. You just have to access it. Whereas for Burp Suite Professional, you need to purchase it, and you can do that using the following link. And then for Visual Studio, which is used for the Python scripts, you need to install it, and the list of steps are outlined in the following link right over here. And then for the Foxy Proxy extension, it can be downloaded using this link right over here. But I have in caps that it's not required unless you're using a previous version of Burp Suite, which is not recommended. And then the next section over here talks about the platform that we're going to use in the labs. So we're using the Portswigger Web Security Academy. It's a free online web security training platform. And again, it's created by Portswigger. So that's the same organization that creates the Burp Suite tool. It's also the same authors that wrote the Web Application Hackers Handbook, which I'll talk about quite a bit in the upcoming videos. We use their labs in the videos, and you do need to register an account in order to access the labs. So you could do that using this link right over here, and then you'll get an email on the instructions on how to complete your registration, and then it's as simple as just logging in and then accessing the academy. Now in the last section of the document, it talks about how to intercept requests using Burp Proxy. Most of you will follow this method right over here if you're using the latest version of Burp. However, if you're not using the latest version of Burp, so you're using one from over a year ago, which you definitely should update, but if you're using a previous version that does not have the built-in proxy, then this gives you the list of instructions on how to configure your browser. So that involves installing Foxy Proxy, configuring it, and then setting up the certificate in your browser. so that it could send requests to Burp. So it's quite involved, and I definitely don't recommend using it unless you, for some reason, can't update your Burp Suite tool. All right, going back to the Kali VM. As I mentioned earlier, I'm running Kali VM on VMware Fusion. Now, to access the tools that I need, I click on the applications icon right over here, and then I write the name of the tool that I want to access. So let's say Burp Suite Community Edition. I click on that, and then select Temporary Project, hit Next, keep the default setting of Use Burp Defaults, and then click on Start Burp. And it's as simple as that. That's how you access Burp Suite Community Edition. Now, to spin up your built-in proxy, all you have to do is click on the Proxy tab and then click on Open Browser. And this is the built-in proxy that automatically sends requests to Burp Suite. So if we go to HTTP history right over here, and then let's say we visit google.com, you should see all the requests being intercepted in your proxy. So that's tool number one. The second tool is Visual Studio. So if we click on that, again, you do need to install this in Kali Linux, and the link to the instructions on how to install it is available in the document. So if we look right over here, this is the tool that I use in order to run my Python scripts. Now, you don't need to use this tool for the course. You could use whatever IDE you want. So I have some of my students use Sublime. Others just use a command line tool like a VI or Vim or Nano or whatnot. It's really whatever you're comfortable with, but in the videos you'll see me quite a bit write my notes in Visual Studio and also compile my Python scripts and develop my Python scripts in Visual Studio. And these are just the two tools that we use. The third tool is Burp Suite Professional, which is really similar to Burp Suite Community Edition with the exception that it gives you access to certain functionality like the collaborator functionality or a faster version of the intruder functionality and so on. So that's pretty much it for environment and tool setup. I'll see you in the next video.